I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam my fist on the table. I didn't do any of the things my daughter probably expected when she said those words in front of everyone at Thanksgiving dinner. Instead, I did something I should have done 30 years ago. I stood up, excused myself quietly, and walked to my car. But not before I left something on that expensive coffee table. Something that changed everything. My name is Catherine Hayes. I'm 63 years old. Until last Thursday, I believed I was doing what good mothers do. Make yourself small so your children can be big. Stay quiet so they can be loud. Fade into the background so they can shine. For 35 years, that's exactly what I did. I became a mother at 28. Before Jessica, I was Catherine Hayes, registered nurse, being considered for a charge nurse position at Boston General Hospital. After Jessica, I was just mom. People don't talk much about the big things you give up when you become a parent. The dreams you had sketched out. The version of your life you'd imagined since you were young. Jessica thought my life represented everything she worked hard not to become. She called my sacrifices settling in front of her high-powered Manhattan friends. She was wrong. And that night, I brought her a box full of proof. A box containing my charge nurse offer and the full scholarship acceptance I turned down, and the dozens of letters that define my real, invisible achievement. This is the story of how I stopped apologizing for my choices and finally taught my daughter what true worth means. If this story of invisible sacrifice resonates with you, give it a like and tell us in the comments. Where are you listening from today? Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. I was good at my job. Really good. My supervisor, Margaret Chen, had already put my name forward for the charge nurse position in the cardiac unit. Better pay, better hours, genuine respect. Then came the impossible math of childcare costs versus my salary. My husband, Tom, made decent money as an electrician, but it wasn't enough for both of us to keep working the way we had. Someone had to scale back. Someone had to be the one who left work early for doctor's appointments and stayed home with a sick child. That someone was me. I told myself it was temporary, just until Jessica started school, then just until she was older. But childhood has a way of stretching on. Before I knew it, temporary had become permanent. I picked up PDM shifts when I could. Nights, mostly weekends. The hours that let me still be there when Jessica came home from school. I watched my former colleagues get promoted, get advanced certifications, move into positions I'd once dreamed about. I smiled and congratulated them and told myself I'd made the right choice. I had made the right choice, hadn't I? Jessica grew up smart and driven. She got into Boston University, graduated summa cum laude, and landed a prestigious consulting job in Manhattan. She met Bradley, who wore expensive suits and talked about maximizing synergies, like it was a real thing. They bought a Brooklyn condo that cost more than every house I'd ever lived in combined. Somewhere along the way, my daughter started looking at me differently, like I was a relic from a simpler time, like I represented everything she'd worked so hard not to become. It wasn't obvious at first. Just small, subtle comments here and there. Mom, you don't need to work anymore. You're retired. Except I wasn't retired. I still picked up shifts at the nursing home because Social Security and Tom's pension didn't quite stretch far enough. Mom, maybe don't mention your job tonight. Bradley's colleagues will be there. As if being a nurse, a life-saving professional, was something to be ashamed of. Mom, could you maybe not wear that? It's a little. She'd trail off. but I knew what she meant. A little cheap, a little old-fashioned, a little embarrassing. I told myself she was just stressed. Planning a wedding was hard. Being young and ambitious in New York was hard. But the constant chipping away hurt. Then came Thanksgiving. Jessica and Bradley hosted it at their new condo the first time since the engagement. Jessica was determined to make it perfect. Designer placemats, a catered turkey that apparently lived a better life than most people, and wine that Bradley assured everyone was quite good for the price point. I arrived early to help. Jessica opened the door wearing an apron that probably cost more than my winter coat. "Mom, you're here." "Good. I need you to just stay in the kitchen, okay? Bradley's parents are coming, and they're very particular." I stayed in the kitchen. I arranged cheese, refilled water glasses, and made myself useful in the way I'd learned over the years. Small, quiet, invisible. Bradley's parents, Richard and Constance Whitmore, swept in wearing cashmere and judgment. Constance said, "Jessica, darling, the place looks wonderful. You've done such a lovely job all by yourself." "Well, Mom helped a little in the kitchen," Jessica said, and I didn't miss the way she said it, like I was the hired help getting a mention in the credits. Tom arrived later, still in his work clothes, drywall dust in his hair. I watched Jessica's expression tighten. "Dad, maybe go change in the bathroom." I cleared plates, refilled drinks, and listened to the performative sophistication of the room. I tried to contribute once, mentioning an article I'd read about healthcare policy, but my voice was swallowed by Bradley's louder one. Tom squeezed my hand under the table. He knew. Then Bradley's colleague, Preston, turned to me with that polite, detached expression people wear when they feel obligated to acknowledge you exist. "So, Catherine, Jessica tells me you were a nurse." "I still am, actually. I work at Mom does PDM at a nursing home," Jessica interrupted, a warning in her voice. "Don't elaborate. Don't make this more than it is." "How lovely," Constance said, in a tone that meant it wasn't lovely at all. "Catherine's being modest," Tom said, his voice carrying that familiar defensive edge. "She was on track to be a charge nurse at Boston General. Before she decided to focus on family," Jessica cut in smoothly, "which was great. Really great. Anyway, Preston, tell everyone about that deal your team just closed." The conversation moved on. I sat there, my face burning, feeling Tom's silent anger beside me. We made it through dinner and dessert. Then came the moment that changed everything. Bradley stood up, tapping his glass. He thanked everyone, thanked his parents, and thanked Jessica. "Thanks to Jess for pulling this whole thing together basically by herself. Babe, you're incredible." Jessica beamed. "Thank you all for being here," she said. "Bradley and I have worked so hard to build the life we have. Everything we've accomplished, we've done through our own effort and determination. And I think that's something to be proud of." I felt it then, a tiny crack in my chest. "To be honest," Jessica continued, wine making her confident, "growing up, I saw what happened when you don't have ambition, when you settle for less than you're capable of, and I promised myself I'd never do that. I'd never just accept whatever life handed me." The crack widened. "I'd never make myself small or let anyone else define my worth. I'd never wake up one day and realize I'd let my whole life pass by without achieving anything meaningful." She wasn't looking at me, but every single guest was. Tom started to stand, but I put my hand on his arm. "Not yet. I'm so grateful," Jessica concluded. That I had the opportunity to see different paths, to learn from both positive and negative examples, to understand that if you want to be someone, you have to do something. The cracks split open completely. I stood up slowly, quietly. Every eye in the room turned to me. "Excuse me," I said, my voice steady. "I need to get something from my car." I walked out of that condo, down the hallway, and into the elevator. I stood outside in the November cold, letting the tears come now that no one could see them. Then, I opened my trunk. I pulled out a banker's box. I'd found it cleaning the garage the night before, yellowed, dusty, and forgotten. Inside were letters, documents, and things I'd pushed down so deep I convinced myself they didn't matter. I never imagined I'd be carrying it back up to that condo. But I was done making myself small. I walked back in, holding the box. The conversation died instantly. "Jessica," I said quietly, "I want to show you something." "Mom, can this wait? We're in the middle of—" "No," I said. "It can't wait. Not anymore." I set the box on that expensive coffee table, opened it, and pulled out the first letter. "This," I said, "is from a woman named Dorothy Martinez. I took care of her mother in 1994 when she was dying of cancer. Dorothy wrote this to thank me for sitting with her mom during her final hours, holding her hand, and telling her it was okay to go." I set it down and pulled out another letter. "This one is from James Chen. I helped save his life when he came into the air with a heart attack in 1989. He wrote this 5 years later to tell me he'd just walked his daughter down the aisle. He said he got to see that day because of me." I kept pulling them out, one after the other. "A thank you from the Garcia family, whose asthmatic son I kept alive as a school nurse. A child's drawing of me as a superhero. A note from a family whose grandfather I'd cared for in his final weeks. You want to know what I achieved?" I said, my voice cutting through the heavy silence like a blade. "I achieved keeping people alive. I achieved being there in the scariest moments of their lives. I achieved making a difference when it mattered most." Jessica's face had gone pale. "Mom, I didn't mean—" "Let me finish," I said, "because there's more." I pulled out a folder, yellowed with age. "This," I said, "is the job offer from Boston General for the charge nurse position. Dated March 1987. The salary would have been $52,000 a year." I set it down and pulled out another document. "This is an acceptance letter to a nurse practitioner program at Boston College. Full scholarship. I'd applied before I got pregnant. I was going to open my own practice one day." I looked at Jessica. "I turned it all down," I said. "Not because I wasn't ambitious. Not because I was afraid to achieve things. I turned it down because I had you." Tears were streaming down my face now, but I didn't wipe them away. "I made myself small so you could be big. I stayed quiet so you could be loud. I faded into the background so you could shine. And I do it again because that's what love is. Real love, not the Instagram kind you post about." I pulled out one more letter, Henry's 15th anniversary note. "This," I said, my voice breaking, "is from your father. He wrote it 3 months before the heart attack that killed him. I had just turned down another job opportunity because the hours would have meant I'd miss your soccer games." I read the final lines. "You're teaching our daughter how to be strong, how to be kind, how to work hard. You're showing her what it means to love someone more than you love yourself. That's not settling. That's not accepting less. That's achieving something most people never do. I am in awe of you every single day." The room was silent. Jessica was sobbing. Tom was crying. Even Constance Whitmore looked uncomfortable. So when you say you had the opportunity to see different paths, I said quietly, you're right. You did. You saw a mother who sacrificed everything so you'd have choices she never had. And instead of gratitude, you learned to be ashamed of that sacrifice. You learned that the only thing worth valuing is money and titles and impressive jobs you can brag about. I didn't achieve nothing. I achieved you. And if you can't see the value in that, then I failed. Not at being a nurse. I failed at teaching you what actually matters. I picked up the box, closed it, and looked around the room. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, I said. I'm going home. Tom stood up immediately. I'm coming with you. Jessica found her voice. Mom, wait, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. You meant it exactly like that, I said, not unkindly. And that's something you're going to have to sit with. But I'm done making excuses for being the kind of woman who chose love over ambition. I'm done pretending that invisible is the same thing as worthless. We drove home in silence. Tom's hand found mine halfway there and didn't let go. That night, I realized I should have spoken up years ago the first time she made me feel small. 2 weeks later, Jessica showed up at my house. I was in the garden, tying burlap around the rose bushes. Mom, please. I need to talk to you. So talk, I said, not looking up. I was wrong about everything I said. All of it. We both know you did mean it, I said calmly. It was just the first time you said it out loud. She flinched. You're right, she whispered. And I hate that you're right. Why were you embarrassed? Because you weren't what I wanted you to be. You were just ordinary. And I spent my whole life trying so hard not to be ordinary. She admitted that having a mother who worked at a nursing home felt like proof that she, too, came from the ordinary she feared. Now I realize I'm an idiot, she said. I sat down on the garden bench. Your father and I never told you, I said quietly, how close we came to losing everything when you were 7. We burned through our savings in 6 weeks. We ate ramen for months, but we never let you know. You kept going to dance class. You kept being a kid. We absorbed the fear and the stress so you didn't have to. Jessica started sobbing. I'm so sorry, Mom. I want to make it right. You can't make it right, I said gently. What's done is done. But you can stop being embarrassed by where you came from. You can stop measuring worth by salary and status. You can start understanding that success comes in a lot of different forms. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm scared, she confessed. I'm scared that if I have kids, I'll have to make the same choices you did. And I don't know if I'm strong enough to do what you did. It doesn't make you terrible, I said. It makes you honest. I am angry, sometimes furious, at the world that forced that choice. But I would do it again because I love you more than I'm angry. But that doesn't mean the anger isn't there. She laughed through her tears. I'm going to be better, she said. I'm going to tell people what you did, what you gave up. I don't need everyone to know. I replied, I just need you to know and to respect it. 6 months have passed. Jessica called off the wedding. She and Bradley wanted completely different things. He wanted a wife who would support his ambition. She wanted a partner who would share the load equally. I realized, she told me, that I didn't want to have your life, but I also didn't want to become someone who'd make the same demands that were made of you. I wanted something different, something better. You should want better, I said. That's what I sacrificed for, so you could have more choices than I did. I still work at the nursing home. But I'm not invisible anymore. Not to Jessica, and not to myself. I look at that box of letters and know that I achieved things worth achieving at the end of the day. When you strip away all the noise about achievement and ambition and success, what's left is this. Did I love well? Did I show up? Did I make a difference in the lives I touched? The answer is yes. Even when I was invisible, I was there. Even when no one noticed, it mattered. I'm Catherine Hayes. I'm 63 years old. I'm a nurse. I'm a mother. And I'm a woman who finally refused to apologize for choosing love over ambition. That is my story.